Hey, everybody. This is Derek McCaw, editor-in-chief of fanboyplanet.com. And welcome, as we are going to be talking about the rebirth of the Edgar Rice Burroughs Universe. And we're going to be talking, it launches next week with a new book called Carson of Venus, The Edge of All Worlds. I'm going to get that across. See, look at this, available next week. And of course, to join me today is podcast producer. Now we're video, but we're video. Is this now, are we a vlog? Is that officially what we're becoming?
I'll have to get back to that.
Evolution is always painful, but we are not alone. We also have as a special guest Edgar Rice Burroughs, director of publishing, Christopher Paul Carey, and he's going to come on in just a couple of minutes. But first, we want to talk about our take on the book. And so, who wants to go first? Just
go
who
first.
wants to? Okay, because as we were talking with Chris a little earlier, I'm like, we are the perfect mix, Rick and myself, of the audience for this book, because Rick knows the Edgar Rice Burroughs universe inside and out. And for me, I read a handful of Tarzan novels. I read all of the John Carter of Mars books. And I read exactly one Carson of Venus book, and read some of the chapters of the Michael Kaluta adaptation that DC ran. I think it was Forbidden Worlds, I think, or Weird World. No, that was Marvel. But anyway, it was in the back of Korak at first, and then it went through. So most of how I was introduced to Edgar Rice Burroughs was through DC Comics. So for me, reading this was like suddenly becoming, I was in 5th grade again. I read Escape on Venus, and I found it at the library, and I was excited to read it. And this just took me back. I suddenly felt like a 5th grader again. And at a time in the world when I needed some kind of escape, this was suddenly, this book, The Edge of All Worlds, was an escape. And it's also the thing that, I don't know why I love this so much, but, it is a crossover. You've got Jason Gridley and Victory Harbin, one previous character from the Pellucidar series, and then and I think Rick's going to bring up an image here. So there we go. There's the novel, and the cover coming out next week, and you've got these characters coming in and out, and they're going to be the thing that ties this entire series together. And it was fun. It was exciting. And Rick and I were talking earlier this week, and I said it just felt like, how is there not a Carson of Venus video game? You go, you fight you learn all these incredible vocabulary, the names of every race on the planet, on Amtor, which is their word for Venus, right? And then they fight a bunch of menace, and then they fight a big bad, a boss, and then they rest for a little while, and they go and they battle. And that was what it felt like to read one of the original novels. And yet I would also say that the characterizations and the viewpoint, even though it reads like Edgar Rice Burroughs, has kind of a 21st century view, that each of these series have been narrated from a protagonist point of view. But with Victory Harbin, and even to some extent Carson in this novel, is realizing that maybe the way he's always been, the way he's always treated, and I think you could agree, Rick, there's a moment when his mate shows more humanity than he does towards a fallen enemy.
Yeah.
And there's this moment, and it's like, and I thought, well, this is, that's a good couple, because he's like, he comes around and realizes she was right, but I don't really remember moments like that happening that much in the previous adventure I had read. I did not write. No, good Lord. It was really cool to get that. And then in the backup novella, with Victory Harbin, it is very clear that she has a 21st century viewpoint. She's a 17-year-old girl who had been raised in Pellucidar, but went off and got her doctorate because she's a genius on Earth. And it's a great perspective that some of what, even if you have gone back and read all the old stuff, she might be retelling some of the stories from a new new point of view, and that's really cool. So how about you, as the long time, you eat, breathe, and sleep every time American Mythology Comics releases something new from Edgar Rice Burroughs, you recommend it on the podcast. So tell me what you thought.
So to me, more important than any of the story or really even the characterization was this going to feel like an Edgar Rice Burroughs story? Was it going to have the same kind of adventure beats? Was it going to have the little tricks that Burroughs himself carried through most of his books, particularly the Tarzan books, where, I mean, there are a couple of times in this where we're introduced to some things that are going to be mysteries past when this book is over. There's a corpse we find at one point that we all recognize.
Yes.
But
well, maybe not everybody does, but it's a good enough mystery, right?
Probably. If you're picking up if you're picking this up, you stand a good chance of knowing what that corpse portends. But and Burroughs' love for language too is really strong in this. I love the fact that, I mean, the bird people, the plural of the word has a couple letters at the beginning of it, and the singular has those removed, and we learn all these. We really do get the linguistics of the thing, which is straight out of just about all the novels. I don't think the Mucker does it that much, but so for me, getting past that fear and really enjoying the book, the characterizations were wonderful. People look at authors who write multiple adventure series, and often you don't, like Dirk Pitt. Dirk Pitt has, there are multiple Dirk Pitts, and they're all exactly the same, even though they're father and son. But you get into the Burroughs novels, and all the heroes are subtly different. And I was trying to remember the differences between like John Carter and Carson. And really, it came up to me very quickly that Carson is forever stumbling into the next disaster, and the idea that if I was trying to say, okay, we got into this conversation a couple days ago, like John Carter is Superman. He can leap tall palaces in a single bound.
After the movie, my son jumped around pretending to be John Carter for days. So yeah.
So, but Carson is more of an everyman. In fact, he's kind of like the guy who still doesn't really believe what's going on, and so like he's in front of and a couple of times in the novel, he's in front of some disastrous situation where the villain or the ruler who's not really on his side is not wanting to deal with him, and he's going, well, it's fine. I can go wait over there, or I can leave, or whatever. It's straight out of, it's Peter Parker and Jack Burton and all these kind of like characters that just kind of fall through their adventures. Not that they're not heroic, but I'm trying to think, is it John Carter who's saying is I live? I think that's it. I was trying to look this up, but it's really hard.
Because he's the one that keeps getting reborn, going back. It's a different kind of thing. And there are references in this novel, and I don't remember that because it wasn't referenced in the previous. He talks about his days in Hollywood. And so he was clearly knocking around LA in the 30s. And I thought, very much, it was like I last year finished that book, Strange Angel, about the early days of rocketry in California. And he's clearly part of that. It's fun. You get a little tiny taste of history. You have to look it up. And as I was saying earlier, not having read the more than one of the original books, my first instinct upon finishing this was I have to go back and get them and read them, because I had so much fun with this, which is the thing. And as you said, people will know like who that corpse or what that corpse might be that they discover. But part of the purpose here is to get a whole new generation excited. Sure. So I think it does its job of bringing in, of being accessible to new readers, a fun character, and enough different points of view. The other thing I should say about this plot, and the author is Matt Bettis, that this is also, at least for a while, the belief, that this is Carson's sins, whether intended or not, are what drive this story.
Yeah.
And
To finish the thought that I was working on, I was looking for the whole thing about Carson is that it's like, it's not I live, it's like I'm still alive.
So there we go. That's the difference. And let's bring in the real expert, and that is Edgar Rice Burroughs Incorporated, Director of Publishing, Christopher Paul Carey. Here he comes. And nope, that's I got to bring him in. See, welcome.
There we go.
There.
And I should say, at this point, let me make it even. I don't want to be the dominant force here. That, of course, if anybody who is watching this live has any questions as we go through, we can bring, or comments, we can bring those through. Like this, I'm going to say, Jess says howdy. So see, it's cool. Anyway, that's good. If you are watching this after the fact, of course, you can just leave comments on Facebook or on Fanboy Planet, where it'll be posted as well. So welcome, Chris. This is an exciting week for you. And so, yeah, what's happening in the world of Edgar Rice Burroughs?
Well, thank you for having me on the program here. This is exciting. It was great. You know, we had an interview earlier last year at Comic-Con, which was a really good time with Win Scott Eckert, one of our authors. Right now, we're just preparing for the release of the book next week. We're all working from home, so everything has to be done remotely. But we're, rising to the challenge as great ERB heroes do. And, the phrase is, I still live, Rick. That's what it is.
I still live. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
And that is Carter?
That's John Carter. Yep.
Yeah.
So, although there's one point where Tarzan says it in one of the books. So it's said in one of the Tarzan books.
But no, we brought in the real expert. I could talk about Rick eating, breathing, and sleeping it, but you are, and you're getting paid for it. So,
So, I'm doing a lot of my publishing. Fortunately, my job, I can do a lot of it at home. Most of it, in fact, as far as the publishing part of my job. I also do licensing and all, which is more of a challenge to do remotely. But so we're preparing for the release of the book, and that should be shipping out on Tuesday. And you're showing some comics there. We have the Eye of Amtor series from American mythology, which is a prequel to Carson of Venus, The Edge of All Worlds. And it has a bonus story in it that I wrote called Pellucidar, Dark of the Sun, the prose version of which is in got the book here, Carson of Venus, The Edge of All Worlds. So there's an expanded kind of prose version of the story. We wanted to make sure that people got that story because it really is the foundation of what we're calling the super arc, the plot line that runs through the first several novels.
Right. There's a name for this, and so remind me what the super arc is called.
Swords of Eternity super arc, and it is sort of the story that runs in the background and will culminate in the fourth book. So the series, I should kind of just synopsize the series. So we have Carson of Venus, The Edge of All Worlds by Matt Betts. So we've been looking forward to that coming out because that is like the first time anything has ever been quite done like this since ERB himself was writing, where we're working in the canon. There have been a lot of excellent books that have come out that may or may not have fit in to canon. Will Murray's books are excellent, and Philip is a Farmer wrote one. Fritz Leiber, a lot of Wild Adventures of Edgar Rice Burroughs series, was the series that came out before this one, is still publishing that series, but that can go into the realm of alternate universe. Whereas with the Edgar Rice Burroughs universe, we're actually treating this as canon. So we're being meticulously going over the world building and the continuity to make sure everything fits in. And we're really getting these stories from other worlds, so it's not that hard because
right. Yes,
we are receiving transmissions from other worlds, and I don't think it's a spoiler to say that Matt Betts himself got his story from Carson, from a mental image of Carson of Venus.
I love that prologue. I love that introduction. That was really fun, and that's what first transported me back. I was like, oh yeah, and it was great.
Yeah.
So, what I think we even on the podcast interview we talked about a little bit, but remind me, what qualifies something as canon? Like, why isn't Farmers? Because there's one, isn't it? Dark Heart of the Sun.
Dark Heart of Time. Dark Heart of Time.
Dark Heart of Time. Yeah.
So it actually is now an Edgar Rice Burroughs Universe book. So we've gone back and retroactively canonized a couple books, and we'll be doing more of that, I'm sure, as the years go on. But so Dark Heart of Time by Philip is a Farmer, a cover art by Mark Wheatley on it. So this is out from Meteor House. So meteorhousepress.com if you want to pick up a copy of that. It was originally published. They published it without the ERB Universe logo on it. But after we pulled it into the universe, they put out a new printing that has the logo on it, which was really, really cool of them to do. And then we recently, Edgar Rice Burroughs Incorporated, released Tarzan in the Valley of Gold, which is sort of a novelization of the Mike Henry movie by award-winning fantasy author Fritz Leiber. And it's very much, it's not just a novelization. It actually, he worked very hard to integrate it into the canon. There's, I don't know how many footnotes throughout the book of like citing the original ERB novel, Tarzan novels in this. So we felt that we could bring this one in too, because Fritz Leiber did such a good job of keeping it consistent with ERB.
So after Carson of Venus, we go to
the next book coming out, and we're hoping to release that this summer. Of course, the world is in a very strange state, but we're very much intent on releasing it this summer, probably in July. We're looking to put out the next Edgar Rice Burroughs Universe and the next Swords of Eternity book, and it's going to be Tarzan, Battle for Pellucidar by Wynne Scott Eckert. So that's a really fun one. Wynne has actually already turned in his manuscript, and I've started editing it. I'm just a couple chapters into it, but I'm really enjoying it. He knocked it out of the park so far from what I've read, and that's going to be really exciting.
Good. Well done, Wynne, because I think Wynne's watching this. So yeah.
Thumbs up. And then next comes John Carter of Mars, Gods of the Forgotten, by an author named Gary Gravel. And he is a fantastic writer as well. I should say, like, I've read like just about everything Wynne has ever written. And he was like one of the first people that came to mind instantly when I knew that I was going to be commissioning new Edgar Rice Burroughs Universe novels. But Gary Gravel was a pleasant surprise because I hadn't previously read his work. I was aware of him as an author. He wrote a number of science fiction and fantasy books for Del Rey. And I knew I kind of ran into him in one of the Burroughs Facebook groups, and I thought of him. And so I queried him because I was looking for people who really knew Burroughs, and he seemed to really know his Burroughs from his posts that he did. And so I, way to go, Wynne. So I reached out to Gary and asked him if he could send me a writing sample. And he unexpectedly told me that he had actually begun writing a Barsoom novel back in, like, I don't know, 2011 or something like that, before the John Carter movie came out. And he had pitched it to ERB Inc. But at that point, the company didn't have a publishing program. And so it just didn't go anywhere. And so when I learned that, I'm like, do you still have your sample chapters? Because he had told me he had written 2 sample chapters, and he sent those to me, and I was just blown away. He really, really has a knack for that Edgar Rice Burroughs voice, and is just so knowledgeable about the canon. I'm constantly in communication with him and with Wynne, fact checking the canon and making sure we're getting everything right. Really looking forward to that. There hasn't, Will Murray has his new Tarzan Conqueror of Mars book, which has John Carter, but there hasn't been a specifically John Carter book. Yeah, great. Yeah.
Yeah, I can bring that up. There he goes. Yeah.
Check it out. Yeah. So that's available right now on Amazon, and I think adventuresinbronze.com is his website where he sells it from.
Yeah.
And but I think fans have really been wanting to see some more John Carter, and Gary is the guy to do it. He is so good. And then I'm coming out with a novel. I'm writing a novel in this series called with the new character that you mentioned, Victory Harbin, and it's going to be called Victory Harbin: Fires of Halos. And I'm really looking forward to writing it. I haven't started yet, but I keep eyeing each weekend because I'm working from home just as I normally would, normal schedule. But I think like this weekend I'll probably get the outline done and then start cranking it out.
Cool.
I've been working really closely with the team, with Matt and with Wynn and with Gary Grable, just to make sure everything lines up, because we want that through line running through the books. Just like ERB himself interconnect. I should say the Edgar Rice Burroughs Universe is not a new idea. It started with Edgar Rice Burroughs. He interconnected his books in a way and on a level that no one really had before. There were other authors who had done little crossovers here or there, like H. Rider Haggard had his Alan Quatermain, She crossover and things like that. And Jules Verne did some crossovers, and a lot of other authors, Sax Rohmer did some crossovers.
Mm-hmm.
But no one really created that feeling of a universe like Edgar Rice Burroughs did. I remember when I was a kid, when I was a teenager reading these books, just blown away by that interconnected nature. I'd never encountered anything like that, and it made it feel real to me. Like I could go out and like maybe I would run into one of these characters, like maybe Billy Byrne from the Muckers out there somewhere, and there, I don't know, ERB, he began a lot of his novels with these forewords that told how he got the stories. And part of your brain, there's just something in the psychology, part of your brain is like, is it possible that it's real? Kind of like Philip A. Farmer's Tarzan Alive, right?
Oh yeah.
The premise that Tarzan was a real person, and he wrote a biography of him and interviewed him. So there's something about that approach that's very archetypal and just really grabs the human psyche, and that's all of my work. I think pretty much all of my work in some way as a writer has been influenced by that approach, and so I knew that's this with the Edgar Rice Burroughs Universe. Once I started working at ERB Inc., I knew that's what we wanted to do, that we wanted to get that across, because it's not I think it's something that is very, like I said, it's archetypal, so people today might not understand it. They've become used to like when the Marvel movies started coming out and they started seeing the interconnectivity of that. I think that was a big that was where it really hit. Like comic book readers, of course, always understood that, but when it started hitting the mainstream, where everybody is watching these movies and they're like, oh, that's so cool, and they started getting really invested in all these little crossovers, these the little teasers in the credits that roll at the end of the movies and stuff like that. So we wanted to do something like that and combine it with that realism, because it is real, that Edgar Rice Burroughs imbued in his works, and so that's something really special. And I think that the modern audience is really gonna grab onto that once they see these new books coming out and taking that approach.
What was particularly important, it was particularly shown in starting with Carson of Venus, because Carson from page 1 was going to go to Mars and meet John Carter, but screwed up and ended up on Venus. So there's your crossover. That's the near miss crossover, but
and if you remember, the person who was in the office with Edgar Rice Burroughs at the beginning of that book was Jason Gridley, and he was relating the story. He was saying, "Oh, I just got a message from von Horst, about or I think it was just about, I can't remember if it was from von Horst or about the von Horst story from Back to the Stone Age in the Pellucidar series. So ERB was connecting these series, you know, and I can only guess, and I haven't found any writings to this effect or anything, that he was a very smart businessman. If anyone who's studied the life of Edgar Rice Burroughs knows that he was a businessman front and center, you know, and it's one of the reasons he was one of the most successful authors of the 20th century. And but he, you know, doubtless was trying to bring people over from one series into the new series, you know, so it's an interesting approach.
Yeah. So once we get this all wrapped up, you know, like I mentioned, I see a video game, but also, you know, what is the next? Once you get through this first super arc, where does Edgar Rice Burroughs Incorporated plan to go with this?
So I'm kind of bouncing around several ideas. I think that it doesn't always need to be the super arc. I think there will be ramifications from this super arc that will continue. There may even be further Swords of Eternity novels beyond the fourth novel down the pipes.
Okay.
But I want to explore some. It'd be interesting to do a Jason Gridley novel. We've discussed that a lot. I've discussed that with my creative team quite a bit. And it'd be interesting to explore some of these characters. How about a Jane novel from Jane from the Tarzan series?
Oh, yeah.
Or, yeah.
I'd like
the time is right. She's overdue. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd like to, you know, possibly assign an author to do a trilogy, you know, maybe kind of associate some people with particular series and get them to do multiple books in the same universe. I see Bill Wormstead saying, I would like to see Victory Harbin continue on beyond the super arc. So would I. And in fact, she will. That's definitely something that we want to do. I think you'll see her in possibly multiple media.
Great.
Of media. So
I think she's a great character, and this is a great relaunch. And I think that we're very excited. So again, Carson of Venus, The Edge of All Worlds, comes out next Tuesday, is available next Tuesday. Books will start shipping. It's available on Amazon, correct?
Yes, it's available on Amazon. You can pre-order it now. There's a Kindle version. There's audio too. There should be there will be an audible downloadable audible edition coming out. That should, I think, go live on the release date.
Who's your narrator?
A fantastic narrator named John McClane.
Okay. I saw his movie.
He's done a lot of good stuff.
So yeah, I should say at this point, of course, that if you wish to pre-order it through Amazon, we will have an Amazon link there on the website on fanboyplanet.com. Because we are affiliated with Amazon, so we would really appreciate that. And of course, if you want to join the conversation after the fact, comment. Of course, you can do that either on Fanboy Planet or on Facebook. You can tweet us at Fanboy Planet. You can, what else can you do? Follow us on Instagram at Fanboy Planet. And of course, if you have any other questions, comments, compliments, commentary, criticism, write into editor@fanboyplanet.com. So Chris, thank you so much for taking your time out this afternoon to join us, and this is and somebody just made a message they just ordered theirs, so fantastic. So thank you for joining this vlog, this live stream, and we'll have you back on again.
Can I do one more plug?
You may.
Okay, there's a special collector's edition of the book, so you can see collector's edition. It's got fancy printing on it, got a doodad on it.
Yes.
It's coming with a signed book plate. I don't have the book plate with me right now, but signed by Matt Betts and myself. And it comes with a special Carson of Venus trading card. And so if you do order it, and I'm not trying to steal your Amazon sales there, but if you do order it from erburroughs.com, that's the only place you can get this from. And
I am running that banner beneath you right now.
Excellent. And anyone who orders it from our website, any edition of the book from our website also gets a collectible Victory Harbin trading card, which I don't have, but I don't think we've shown Victory, but there's a picture of Victory Harbin right there.
Okay, hang on, let me make that large. There we go. Yes, hold it up. Okay, wonderful.
With her
so once again, Thank you, Chris. We're going to wrap this up. I'm
All right.
Derek McCaw.
And I'm Rick Brett Snyder, reminding you to
Use your powers for good. YouTube lag. We'll work it out.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.